very warm welcome to all of viewers. We are at the Gurugram chapter of IBLF finally, and today I have with me Professor Aishwarya Pandit from Jindal Global Law School. Pleasure having you here. A very interesting book, and to be honest, if this was Republic or NDTV, I would be asking you a different set of questions. But since we are beat up the business world, so let's keep it mellow. So I want you to give a brief to our viewers what your book is exactly about, so they know. So yeah, let's start that.
My book talks about its prime focus remains Muslim politics in area of North India, which is broadly speaking Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and this. I'm trying to revise some of the claims, and I call it revision very carefully because some of the real stalwarts have written very extensively on the subject. This is obviously an extensively written subject: identity politics, voting behavior, Muslim vote, which is a common term which is used to describe and try to understand Muslim political behavior. Muslims are like any other voter.
Right.
They vote for a range of reasons. So my book basically tries to unpack some of those aspects, such as secularism is very often misunderstood as, and the kind of secularism that has been in this country is also very, very distorted, and our understanding is very, very limited. So secularism as a theory and secularism in practice have been very two different things in the Indian context. And it attempts to tackle a range of ideologies, theories, which influence the first 40, 50 years of this country's history. So in that sense, it targets a very broad range of audience. A lot of millennials today, which would like to make a sense of what is happening today in contemporary Indian politics. So this kind of has a reflection on that.
Okay. Your book is very fascinating, especially given that the ruling party has been accused multiple times of using religion as a tool to, in their campaigns, in their policies. So I want to understand, in your book, what are the parts that hit the hardest, that have the most impact?
I think one thing that this so-called anti-Muslim rhetoric is not the forte of the Jan Sangh or the BJP.
Okay.
Actually, the Congress has been championing it for many years, which is something which is seldom told. Congress governments in Uttar Pradesh have systematically spied, dismissed Muslims from service on account of disloyalty, which was a common term used at that point of time. It tries to unpack the growth of Hindu nationalism. What are the reasons for the growth of Hindu nationalism? So it dwells a great deal of that. And I would like to say that Hindu nationalism has very little to do with the anti-Muslim bias. It's basically got to do with certain stereotypes which have remained prior to independence and have been very conveniently adopted by successive governments, including Nehruvian India, which this is a story which is seldom told. So this book is trying to attempt to go into an area where it's basically taken for granted that the Muslims were most protected and most enfranchised and most dominant section, although the evidence is to the contrary.
Okay. What was your inspiration for this book?
The inspiration from this book is also when you go through, when I actually started working on the book and you start seeing historical detail, you actually trying to understand, you come to this conclusion of what you've largely read in your history books. And I would say in the school history books that are propagated since independence or even now or any time, has very little to do with actual historical detail. There is always an inclusion of certain historical characters depending on the political power and exclusion. Like someone asked me a question about what is your understanding of Veer Savarkar. Our understanding of Veer Savarkar is only broadened now because of a plethora of publication on that topic. Otherwise, nobody really tried to explore what Savarkar was trying to say.
Right.
Even if you don't agree with him, you would at least try to explore, engage with what Savarkar is trying to say. So I feel that there is a lack of engagement with figures and the writings on the Hindutva side, which is largely responsible for a misinterpretation of what they have to do. writing for the book was also inspired by a desire to kind of unpack an area which is considered, oh, it's a done deal. We already know so much about it. So it's basically trying to explore the first 30 odd years of the making of this country.
Okay. You did mention that Hindutva is being misinterpreted. Who do you think is responsible for that?
See, a lot of things are responsible. Obviously, social media is a large part, because I have seen WhatsApps and things which are forwarded, which have very little to do with historical detail, and that may be forwarded by people who have an identification with the cause, but they do great disservice to it by actually trying to forward it. Even the courts have defined Hindutva in a cultural sense.
Okay.
So it's a cultural thing. And I'm telling you as a historian, I will analyze it on the basis of what is available on the existing data that's available, or it's what thinkers who have tried to explain Hindutva have said. What are they really saying? So whether we teach Golwalkar to our students, we teach also Iqbal,
Okay.
we teach Azad, and we also teach Periyar. So we teach them a broad range of ideologies, and then we leave it to them to make a decision. But excluding Golwalkar or excluding Periyar or excluding Iqbal would be a great disservice, because the students are not exposed to a broad spectrum of ideologies.
Right.
So I think a great disservice has been done over the years, that we've systematically excluded Savarkar, no out. Golwalkar, oh no, we're not going to discuss Golwalkar. Oh, this is not fashionable and we're not going to discuss it. I think we need to discuss it, put it in the broad range of people out there, students, young people, people who have lived through those phases, let them take their call. The very fact that you are just relegating it to a footnote is really not doing much. So that is why I was kind of trying to tell you our history course at our law school. The first section, when the students just come out of school and enter college, we do teach them all these ideologies.
Okay.
And then it's up to them to make their decision. They argue, we debate, and that. But at least there's a healthy debate going on, rather than just dismissing, oh, it's Hindutva. Oh, it's Golwalkar. What else? What great could he say? Oh, it's Veer Savarkar. We already know what he said. He's bigoted. Why not engage?
I mean, that is the ideal approach. Okay, last two questions. What would you say to your critics?
I know I'm going to have critics, so I would just say we must have a healthy discussion. There may be many points you may disagree with me with respect to the book, but that's what books are. They're not supposed to be like agreeable to all. I will obviously have critics, but I would say whatever I've said is not backed by evidence. It's backed by evidence and my interpretation of the evidence.
Right. I agree. The book is supposed to start a conversation, right? Okay, last question. What would you say to aspiring writers?
I would say write a paragraph or two every day, because without that, you can't write a book. It has to be consistently 3 to 4 hours of your daily time if you really want to write a book and have it out.
Okay.
Otherwise, if there's no consistency, you lose track of things and you can't write. So I would say constantly write. You might write rubbish one day, second day, you might just come up with, out of 1,000 words, you might come up with 200 good words, and rest is all rubbish, but it's okay.
Okay. So you mean that you gave 3 to 4 hours every day for this book? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you.